Hello, happy Friday. Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren Jbara here with Jared Smith. Jared, what a Thursday night football game last night. I mean,
Oh,
have you calmed down from it yet?
I've got chills up my spine from that one.
They're
Um,
multiplying.
I think when you watch that game as a fan, you are very excited. As a bettor, man, the Packers getting that many points. Clearly, Devontae Adams is not worth the full three. Alan Lazard not worth. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could have thrown anyone out there with Aaron Rodgers, and he would have found a way to at least keep that game close. He is unbelievable, and I think it was a learning experience for the Cardinals because they haven't been in a lot of those tight games against really good opponents. Their one really big win was a blowout against the Rams this year. And they got fortunate in one of those close games against the Vikings to, eke out with a missed field goal. So I think that was a good learning experience. I'm not ready to, the odds did not really shift against Arizona that much last night in the futures market. And that's because the books are still very confident that they're a really good team. But Kyler Murray's injury, something to keep an eye on. He didn't look great at the end of that game.
No, definitely something to keep an eye on. It was, I was sitting here watching it. I'm like, wow, what just happened? Like, he didn't even turn to look at the ball.
Yeah.
He turned around. He's like,
crazy ending of a game.
I'm like, that looks
Crazy.
like me trying to catch a football out there. I could have done that. You know what I mean? But we got a lot to talk about today. The weekend is upon us. We are so excited. We got week 9 of college football, week 8 of NFL. Our friend Andrew Ortenberg is going to come on and give his NFL picks. I think he went 2-2 this past weekend. The week before he went 0-4. So it's trending up this week, maybe 3-1, maybe 4-0. We'll see what happens. And then we can't end, Jared, without our Pickswise play of the day and our best bets of the day. Are you ready for it?
Let's go.
Let's get it. Let's bet it. College football coming up this weekend, week 9. There's quite a few big matchups, a lot of rivalry games. When you're looking at the slate this weekend, what do you have your eye on?
Yeah, so this Miami game, we talked about it earlier in the week. That was actually all 3 of my bets were given out during the early bird segment on Tuesday. So these aren't new. I'll update you where the lines are on each. The Miami games kind of stood pat at 9.5. We got it at 12.5 on Monday. So some significant movement in that game. And the handicap for me with Miami, it's really around Tyler Van Dyke. And I think the sports books are a little bit hesitant to give him some respect. But the sharps have no problem giving him some respect because that line moved significantly in Miami's favor very early in the week. Miami 2-0 against the spread in their last 2 games, both as underdogs. Nice outright win over NC State. Very good defense with NC State. So the fact that Van Dyke can put up a big game, 325, 4 touchdowns against a good NC State defense, gives me hope that he can go on the road and beat a Pitt team that they've been a surprise this year. Kenny Pickett's on the fringe of the Heisman race. I don't think he's really a contender, but he's definitely got his name in the conversation. And this Pitt team has been really good against the number 3-0 in their last 3 games, all in the ACC, but they're all short spreads as a favorite, under a touchdown. Now they're, a double-digit favorite, essentially, against this Miami team. I think the Hurricanes are going to be a live dog. Noon matchup, could be a sleepy game, especially after Pitt's coming off that win over Clemson. The other 2 games I bet were both totals. We love betting these ACC overs. I know you've been hanging out in ACC country when watching a lot of these games. This Wake Forest team just puts up points. They score a lot of tempo with Duke as well. So I think it's going to be a fast-paced game between these 2 North Carolina rivals. I got in at 69 to the over. It's currently 71.5. I had a feeling it would close at 70 or higher. We were right. I would still play it at 71. I think this game's going to be high scoring. And in the last game, I bet late night, West Coast, Arizona, USC over 56.5. No movement there. It's still 56.5. Both teams play relatively fast paces. I'll be honest, of all the 3, this is probably my least favorite of the 3 games that I bet this week. But I still think 56.5 is a pretty low total. We've seen a lot of high scoring games at the Coliseum this year, average total of 61.8. over USC's last 4 home games. We don't need 61.8. We only need 57 to win this bet. And I think Arizona's got something to prove. They're one of the last winless teams in the FBS. So I think they're going to come out with a little bit of fire. So Miami plus 12.5. I'd still be comfortable with 10. Duke Wake over 69. Arizona USC over 56.5. Those are the 3 picks in the college football card this week.
I like it. I kept most of my early birds the same, but I also changed it up a little bit. The more I did research, the more I started thinking about it. I'm like, I got to stop betting for my favorite teams, but I'm still betting for one of my favorite teams. I have Notre Dame laying 3.5 against UNC. I said make it back-to-back wins for Notre Dame following its first loss of the season. Notre Dame, they opened up as 3.5-point favorites over North Carolina. It's still the same. UNC has been, to me, I guess, fairly predictable this year. Every single time when they score over 35 points or more, they're 4-0. And when they score less than 35 points, they're 0-3. So Notre Dame just has to hold them to 34 points or less in this one. One of my things is North Carolina or UNC has not been able to show that they could stop anybody this year. I think Notre Dame's offense found its stride last week with the hurry-up offense. Listen, like Sam Howell, he's going to throw for some yards with All-American Kyle Hamilton out this week, but I don't think it's going to be enough to outscore the Irish. If that's not enough for you to bet them, UNC is 2-19 all the time against Notre Dame. So I feel really good.
Ooh, I like that nugget.
This one. Feel really good about taking the Irish in this one, laying the points. I also have Stanford laying 2.5 at home on the farm against Washington. And by the way, that is the worst turf in the FBS. I think they call it because, oh my gosh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I think they call it the farm because like the animals graze on it in between games during the week. It's like literally wild.
I find some presence there from the animals left behind.
I look at Washington, though. Washington's 1-6 against the spread this season. I think Stanford plays so much better at home. It's a Pac-12 after dark game. Stanford scores a lot of points in league games. Washington has been one of the top defenses in the Pac-12, but at Stanford, I think the offense puts together enough points against Washington and their anemic offense, in my opinion. Washington beat Arizona 21-16 last week. Arizona might be the worst team in the FBS. They lost to Montana earlier in the year. I feel pretty good about Stanford at home, laying the points on the farm. And then the last one, I'm sticking to my guns on this one, Michigan, MSU. The way to bet this game is the under. You bet under 50.5. And I feel really, really good about this. I think, MSU opened as 3.5 point underdogs at home. Michigan came out of its bye week looking really sharp, in my opinion. I think this game, though, it's going to come down to the defense. That was one of the biggest and most promising signs for me watching Michigan throughout the last few weeks is how the defense performed after a week away. They allowed 430, I think it was 430 yards, 431 yards to Nebraska a couple weeks earlier against Northwestern, only 233 yards. I think that the only way that this game goes over is if the defense scores points because these two offenses are not capable together of combining to score 50 points. So I think like you add stingy defenses on each side, points are going to be tough to come by. Michigan can shut down Kenneth Walker and MSU can shut down Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. I think there's no chance that this game goes over. So I feel like the under is the best way to bet that one. And those are my three biggest bets. MSU, Michigan, under. Stanford laying 2.5, Notre Dame laying 3.5. Lock it, print it, check the game.
Print it.
I feel pretty good about it.
I think of the three you gave out, I think the one I like the most is Stanford. Yeah. Especially if that gets the 3. So I did see some good. So low total game, 47.5. Haven't seen much movement on the total. And it went from 1.5 to 2.5 in a lot of spots. And if it gets to 3, then clearly there's a lot of smart money coming in on Stanford. You and Alex love betting these college football unders. I don't know how I think betting an under in college football is like, it's cruel and unusual punishment. But you guys have been you guys have been successful doing it this year. Alex really has actually had a really good streak with the college football under. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I can't subject myself to that much torture on a Saturday at noon, having to root for teams to run 3 times and punt. It's so crazy. The college football totals, you think everything's going great, and then it's like one play,
and all of a sudden
it all goes to shit.
One more college football topic I want to get into. Right. It's a game that we were talking about last week. Red flag or deal breaker, Jared. The topic today, Ole Miss Auburn. Are the injuries for you a red flag or a deal breaker?
So first, I think we should at least give some context to this.
Oh, I'll give context. So
yeah, please do.
All those signs, maybe I'll stay away from betting this game. And a deal breaker is like, let's just end the conversation right now. I'm not betting this at all. No, thank you. No, sorry. Goodbye. That's a deal breaker. Red flag, you're like, maybe.
I'll admit, in my dating history, I've had some red flags that I should have elevated to deal
Most people
breakers.
ignore the red flags, Jared.
Yeah, and that honestly, there is a betting lesson there, because sometimes our brains are locked in on a certain play, and there's a little cognitive bias associated with a team or a bet or a total or whatever. And then you start to get the red flags, whether it's an injury news or it's, a trend that you weren't aware of, and you dismiss them because you're just so focused on that bet and that angle that you cooked up in your own brain that when other people present red flags, you ignore them. In this particular case with Ole Miss and Auburn, the market is the true north for me, the North Star guiding me through what is a difficult game to handicap, because you have Auburn that I think has played well at times, but not elite. Not the Auburn that we're used to seeing, maybe winning games in with their defense and with I don't want to call it Gus Malzahn swag, but he's not there anymore, and that was an interesting coaching situation in Auburn. So now it's a different vibe there, and it's also a very different quarterback situation for Ole Miss. That's the red flag here. It's Matt Corral's health, and he ran it the fewest amount of times all season last week against LSU. That's a red flag. Because if he was healthy, he would not have. I think he ran it only 6 times in that game. And when you look back at what Matt Corral is at his core, it's a running quarterback who can throw the ball down the field as well. Yeah. So the red flag to me is Matt Corral's health. If we hear that Matt Corral is not going to play in this game, there's your deal breaker, because the market doesn't think he's going to play. The market's moving this game towards Auburn. I opened to pick him, and now it's -3. So the market thinks it's a deal breaker. I'm a little more hesitant because the market moved against Ole Miss last week too. It went from 11.5 to 9.5, and Ole Miss covered the spread. They look great. So I'm not ready to put this game in the deal breaker category, but the fact that the market's moved against Ole Miss as significantly as it has, that's a red flag. And if you're on Ole Miss this week, I'd be very cautious.
Yeah, that was my biggest thing. I said, is Matt Corral playing? If he's not, deal breaker. If he is, just a red flag for me. He is the difference maker in that game. And that makes a difference for if I'm going in or staying out. I'm not betting that game this week, but if I was, the difference, Matt Corral in, not a deal breaker. Out, absolute deal breaker.
Just to correct one thing, Corral ran it 12 times last week, a little more than I thought, but he only had 24 yards, which is his second lowest output of the season, the lowest being against Alabama. So he only averaged 2 yards a rush in that game. Now, granted, sacks count against him, so it's a little bit skewed. But obviously, he was not – he ran it 30 times the prior week against Tennessee and 15 times against Arkansas for 94 yards 2 weeks ago. So, obviously, he's not – I don't think he's 100%, and that scares me. I think that's why this market's moved pretty significantly in favor of the Tigers at home.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens heading into tomorrow, but we will see. I like that. Red flag or deal breaker. We need to do that more often.
Fun game.
Big
Do
fan.
it in your dating life, too. It's very important.
I'll try, Jared. I'll try. Okay. Now
not just you. Everyone out there listening. I mean, you're doing fine.
The generic you. The
generic.
Jack, our producer, said it only took Zach Wilson getting injured for Jared to stop betting Jets. Red flag.
Oh, the Jets are a deal. If you're a Jets fan, that might be a deal breaker for me in a relationship, because
I'm
you're clearly
that game this weekend. But
I know you are. You're very brave laying the points. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Well, speaking of
deal breakers,
NFL. Speaking of moving from NCAA to NFL, let's bring in our good friend Andrew Ortenberg, Pickswise editor, all the way from the West Coast, to come on in and give us his NFL picks. What's up, Andrew? Welcoming in our friend, Pickswise editor, our own Andrew Ortenberg, AO, all the way from the left coast, the West Coast. How you doing today? The weekend's upon us. You feeling good?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I got a new background. I even put on a button-down shirt for you guys today.
Oh, looking snazzy.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Feeling good.
I love it. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, sorry to remind you of this, bring back bad memories, horror film. You went 0-4. This past week, 2-2. AO, we're trending in the right direction. This week, what? 3-1, 4-0. How you feeling about it?
4-0. Still 10-6 overall, I believe. Went 8-0 the first 2 weeks. But I'm feeling good. I'm trending in the right direction. That's all that matters.
All right, what
upward
are you
momentum.
looking at this weekend?
Where to start? I guess I'll start with the Colts. I like them. Could have had them +1, 2 earlier in the week. Now they're like -2. I like the Colts a lot. Everyone's jumping on board the Titans bandwagon. I think that last week had a lot more to do with the Chiefs just having a lot graver issues than people realize than anything else. The Colts, I was not a Carson Wentz guy coming into the year. I am now a full-blown Carson Wentz guy. They've won 3 out of 4 games.
He's like,
how can you not be?
Rock solid. Yeah.
He's thrown 1 interception because they changed that one on Sunday night. He had to a fumble. So he's only thrown 1 interception the whole season. The Colts have won 3 of their past 4 games. It would be 4 in a row if it weren't for that overtime loss to the Ravens where they were up 16 in the fourth quarter. That was, you tip your cap. Lamar Jackson literally set NFL records. The Ravens had this miraculous comeback. That's on the road in overtime to one of the best teams in the league. Other than that, they've won every game in the past month. If you look at the Colts' schedule early on, I think that their slow start was just a result of playing a really tough schedule. I mean, their first 3 games came against the Seahawks, then the Rams, and then the Titans. Obviously, Carson Wentz sprained both of his ankles very early on in the season. They were dealing with just a barrage of injuries. Quentin Nelson, the all-pro guard, was out. He's back. He just came back last week. They almost beat the Titans in Tennessee earlier this season at a time when the Colts were playing very poorly, were very injured. Wentz's ankles were still messed up. Kind of like at the rock bottom for the Colts. They went into Indy and they went into Tennessee and very nearly won that game. Now they're on the ascent. They're getting healthier. They're playing their best football of the season, and they're playing that same Titans team at home. I mean, I like the Colts a lot here. It feels like the spot where everything's kind of finally going their way. Wentz and Frank Reich, I give Frank Reich a ton of credit. I was skeptical of his decision to go out and bang the table for Wentz this offseason. He clearly knew what he was doing. And Michael Pittman Jr. just looks like an absolute stud, a star, truly one of the next star receivers in the league, I think. And I'm still not quite buying the Titans. Yes, they're very impressive against the Chiefs. Full stop. I did not think they looked all that impressive against the Bills the week before. They won against the Bills, but I thought Buffalo was clearly the better team in that game. Tennessee, obviously they lost to the Jets. I'm still just not buying it. Indy, one of the best run defense teams in the entire league. If anyone's going to slow down Derrick Henry, it'll be the Colts. It's DeForest Buckner coming up the middle. True. So I like Indy.
Love it.
I like it. I was actually looking at that game too, and might tail you on that. But I love the Colts. Like, I love Carson Wentz this season. I know most people. Jared, was it like what? I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was like, I'm riding high on Carson Wentz right now, and he went off. I think it was the Monday Night Football game. I don't remember exactly. Sunday Night
Football.
Yeah, and since then I've been loving the Colts.
Line analysis here says Indy is absolutely the sharper side. My advice to any Colts believers out there: bet Indy as early in the week as possible because the sharps love this team and the line always moves in their favor. It always moves in Indy. I mean, unless injury or something outside of the realm of normal circumstances, but the line consistently moves in the Colts' favor. So if you like the Colts, as AO just said, you bet him early in the week. He would have had plus money. Now you got to lay, but I still think they're going to win this game on Sunday.
I like it.
It's very good point. I will know. I tweeted them out +1. Got to follow my Twitter, @DrewKnows_. And I would also be remiss if we talked about the Colts. I just realized I haven't been on. The Colts were the part of the Jbara, which won.
Yes.
I'm sure you guys talked about it on Monday's show. I wanted to acknowledge it. I wanted to take credit for it, like I said I would on the show if it won, which
you
it did.
5 whole days to take credit.
You are welcome. You're welcome.
Hey, anytime. Or thank you.
No, anytime to you. Thank you.
I go anytime. Wait,
you deserve the credit. Don't let AO steal
I said I would take
thunder.
the blame. Okay, I'm joking. That was great. I was really happy when it won. Let's make it 2 in a row this week.
It's going to hit again this week.
Yeah, we have a good Jbara coming up. But before we get into it, AO, what else you got?
I guess go with a total. I like the under in the Steelers-Browns game. I'm very low on this Browns offense. And Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, doesn't matter. It looks like it's going to be Mayfield. I'm not sure if that's much of an upgrade. I don't think it's a downgrade. I'd call it a net neutral at this point. I was on the Browns last Thursday Night Football because I didn't think there was much of a downgrade from Mayfield to Keenum when it dropped to -1, when I thought that was pretty crazy how much that moved just for Mayfield's injury. And injured Baker Mayfield, he looked really bad before going down.
Yeah.
Now it seems to me like he's going to try and gut through this, perhaps against the advice of maybe some people, just because he's worried about Case Keenum taking his job or something, which is understandable. Exactly. I mean, Baker's playing for a contract. He understands he has to be out there. It feels like he's kind of forcing himself through this. If you look at the Browns' offense recently, they scored 17 points against Denver, obviously with Keenum. The week before that, they scored 14 points against the Cardinals, and they really only scored 7 because 7 of those were on the Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Yeah. They had one random good game against the Chargers. The week before that, they scored 14 points. So in 3 out of their past 4 weeks, they've scored 17 points or fewer. One of them, they really only scored 7. Now they're playing Steelers, AFC North rivalry game. This is the playoff revenge from last year. It sounds like a cliche, but there's no love lost between these two teams, if you will. I expect this to be kind of a hard-fought defensive struggle. I'm also very low on the Steelers offense, and I think the Browns defense is a lot better than it gets credit for. They just absolutely dominated the Broncos last week. The Denver had 1 garbage time touchdown drive. Outside of that, they did virtually nothing the entire game. The Browns, I thought that they actually did a pretty decent job. If you go back and look at the box score of that Cardinals-Browns game, it says the Cardinals put up 37 points or whatever they did. But that was very misleading. Baker gift-wrapped them a couple of turnovers deep in the Browns territory. I thought they actually did a pretty good job on Kyler Murray. So I really don't think they'll have much of an issue with this current iteration of Ben Roethlisberger, whatever you want to call him. Steelers defense is getting healthier. The Steelers defense, interestingly enough, they usually have an elite run defense. This year, they actually don't. They're just kind of like a slightly above average, maybe run defense. So I think that's actually good for the under. The Browns, I don't think Kevin Stefanski trusts Baker, injured Baker. I think they're going to keep it heavy on the ground. They're getting Nick Chubb back. How are they going to celebrate? By giving him the ball a million times. And this is going to be a very slow, very low-scoring game. I also kind of like the first half under. I personally split my bet. For the sake of the show, we're called under 42.5 for the full game. I split mine, put half on the first half under 21, half on the full game 42.5.
Good strategy. I like that strategy a lot.
Yeah, the Steelers, in particular, they've been starting very, very slow in the first half. Their first half offense is abysmal. They play at an extremely slow pace in the first half.
First half under, sometimes you get a better number, because of the way that it's split. In this case, it's kind of even. But that I always look, whenever I want to play an under, I always look at the first half total. Because sometimes it's like if it's a 42 and say you get 21.5 on the first half, well, I'll take that extra half point all day. Absolutely.
Totally. Sure. I like it. Okay, give us more. I want to make some money this week.
Man, this next one's a doozy. Stick with me. Don't call me crazy if you like. I like the Jaguars plus 3.5. I like the Jags plus 3.5. This laying more than a field goal with I'd say laying more than a field goal with Geno Smith is crazy. So to each their own. Maybe we're both crazy. Anyone betting the Seahawks or the Jags is crazy. I'd say anyone betting either side of this game is a red flag and a deal breaker. But I'm taking Jacksonville. They're coming off the win, or they're coming off the bye, but they just got their first win of the season. Now they're on the bye. It's kind of like, okay, we can hit the reset. Everything that happened, all the Urban Meyer stuff and the disasters that happened in the first couple months of the season, we can throw that out the window, start new. And quietly, they were already starting to play better before their win over Miami in London. If you look at their last 3 games before that, their last 3 losses, so like over the past month, their last 4 weeks are their first win of the season over the Dolphins. And then their 3 games before that were against the Titans, the Bengals, and the now I'm forgetting, I have it right here, and the Cardinals. They played 3 of the hottest teams in the league. Each of those teams are at least 5-2. The Bengals, they led for most of the game. They were up 14-0 at halftime. They lost by 3 on the road in prime time to a very good Bengals team. They were beating the Cardinals at halftime. They got ran over by a Titans team that's playing pretty well right now. And then they finally got to play a lower team like the Dolphins. They beat them outright. Now they're playing Seattle. Seattle, their season's over at 2-5. It doesn't matter if Russ is coming back. I mean, the Cardinals are 7-1. The Rams are light years ahead of them. The Seahawks, I think, these past 2 weeks were kind of their last stand. It was like, okay, if Geno can go out there, they had back-to-back primetime games against the Steelers and the Saints. And it was like, if Geno can win one, maybe 2 of these, maybe Russ can come back. We're finish the season on fire. I think these 2 losses were really, really demoralizing for Seattle. And if you think about it, it's the perfect letdown spot. They just played back-to-back games in prime time that were essentially their season, got their hearts ripped out both times in close games against the Steelers and Saints. And now they have to imagine going from Sunday night football, Monday night football, afternoon game against the 1-win Jaguars. It is the night and day perfect contrast between the stakes of those games. Now Geno in the afternoon, Seattle's offensive line is starting to look really bad again. And unlike Russ, he can't really mask those problems. Geno took 5 sacks against the Saints. Now he's facing a Jaguars defense that's starting to play a little bit better. 2019 first-round pick Josh Allen for the Jaguars has really been getting after the quarterback the past few weeks. Geno just took 5 sacks against the Saints. So I think that Josh Allen might get 1 or 2 here. I think the Jags are going to keep this game very close, if not win it outright. I think a Geno meltdown is coming.
Market agrees with you. Seattle, everyone's on Seattle, but the line's kind of sharpened up. I saw 3 at Caesars this morning. Mm-hmm. So anytime the books start to evaporate the hook, then you know that there's some smart money coming in on Jacksonville. So we'll see. That's an interesting one. I noticed the total tick up about a point too. I bet the over 43 earlier in the week because I was like, how are the Jags? Like the Jags defense isn't stopping anybody. So if there is a week that Seattle's going to score, this is the week. Not to say that they have. And then I think that I think the Jags might be my last contest play. You might have convinced me there, AO.
Yeah. Like you said with the over, man, with these quarterbacks, with a rookie and Geno Smith, there's always a chance of pick 6 and interception deep in their own territory.
43 is really low for 2 bad defenses too. 43 is really low.
Yeah, totally. I know. I look at
all
this
right,
weekend.
LJ, what do we got?
I look at this weekend, and my first bet, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it may or may not also be someone's best bet of the day. So I'm not going to take too much time talking about it because I'll let them talk about it coming up in the show. But I have Vikings laying 2.5 against the Cowgirls. And I just like saying Cowgirls instead of Cowboys. It makes it sound more fun, right? So Vikings laying 2.5 against the Cowgirls. I know, Andrew, you were really riding high on Minnesota last week. So
he's still my beating heart. I'm so glad to hear this.
I know. He's still my beating heart. I cannot. So I'm not going to talk too much about it. I know you have it a little bit later in the show, but I think that, if they're going to improve their record to 4-3 on Sunday, they're going to have their best performance of the season. I look at Dallas. They won their last 5 games. They're in a position to challenge for a top seed in the NFC playoffs this year. Dak Prescott, though, currently dealing with an injured calf. And I think Minnesota, they're in a spot right now that they could probably take advantage of that with their pass rush. So I'm not going to go too much into it. I'll let AO talk. I have a lot more points, but I don't want to take all of his points either. But I look at, the Cowboys' pass defense has been one of the worst in the NFL this season. And in the end, that's going to be what allows Minnesota to get their biggest victory of the 2021 campaign. So that's where I'm riding high. I like the Vikings laying 2.5. But what I really want to get into, guys, drum roll.
I don't want to drum roll too much. The Jabbarley is hot. 1-0 in the last 1 Jabbarleys.
Not the whole season, but 1-0 in the last
1-0 in the last one.
We're feeling good. We're feeling good. So moving into this week, we're going to be 2-0. Okay, Andrew, I'll let you take full responsibility, full credit for this one. Jared, I'll let you have
That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
So I'll let you guys both have a little bit of it. Sorry, Jared, I'm betting against your Jets with this one, but I have the Bengals.
I'm betting against them too this week. They're in rough shape. This week sucks for the Jets. They're going to get their butts kicked.
It's okay. I'm also fading my own team too, so I'm going with the Lions. Well, not really, but just kind of a little.
Kind of. You hope they don't score.
Which I'll get into. Okay, first leg of the Jabbarley. Bengals laying 10.5 against the Jets. Last week, I loved the Bengals. That was a really great call. I'm going to stick with them here again. So it may not seem optimal. The line has shifted from -3.5 to -10.5 this week in rapid order. I think the 7-point shift, though, is easy enough to explain. So first of all, Cincinnati underrated on the advanced spread. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. And I think they should be heavily favored to beat the Jets. 10.5-point spread is way more indicative of that than 3.5 points, right? Secondly, the Jets preparing to start a new quarterback in week 8, Mike White, Josh Johnson, or Joe Flacco. Who do you think it's going to be, Jared?
It's going to be Mike White.
Mike White. Okay. Well, hard to argue that any of them are good options anyway. So to be fair, Zach Wilson.
Is that a red flag or a deal breaker for you?
That's definitely a deal breaker for me. That's why I've been on the other side. I said White saw his first NFL regular season action against the Patriots, completed 20 of 32 for 202 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think he could cut down on the turnovers this week, but the Patriots backed off at the end of the game with a big lead. So that's part of why he didn't really post the solid numbers. I said elsewhere, Johnson playing for his 13th professional team, largely relied on 1-year stints to keep him going. Also played the UFL, AAF, and XFL. I don't even know what the AAF is, to be honest.
He's not going to play this week. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, anyways,
I don't even think Flacco's in camp yet. They had some issue getting Flacco into camp this week.
I heard that.
The Jets have issues this week. If Mike White gets
driving
hurt,
down,
I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well,
they might call you and call you down to go play quarterback.
I'm ready. I did play powder puff football, so in high school,
quarterback
and powder puff. We did win. We did win junior year high school. Okay, well, look at the other side. The Bengals, they improved their defense. Lamar Jackson held them and the Ravens to just 17 points. Blowout win last week, which I thought was like, holy crap. Like, I can't believe they just did that. I think they should similarly limit the Jets regardless of who's starting at quarterback. And given that the Jets allowed the 4th most points per game, 29.2, the Bengals could be in for another big win in this one. I like the Jets laying 10.5, or the Jets laying 10.5. The Bengals laying 10.5.
Don't lay 10.5 with the Jets.
Alt spread plus 1,200.
Don't do that. No.
And then the second half of my Jabbar lay, Eagles at Lions under 48. So I'm not really betting against my Lions, but I just don't think my Lions are very good, which is also shown by their record so far this season, which I will not get into because it's going to make my heart rate go up. So let's talk about the under for a second. Jared, we talked about it. Betting the under, it usually isn't fun, but if there was ever a time to do it, this would be the game. The point total of 48 just seems way too high for both these teams. Have both of them had like good offensive outings throughout the season?
The Eagles did week 1.
Sure.
The Eagles blew out the Falcons week 1. They dropped like 30 on them, 35.
Guess what? Is either team consistent?
No. No. The Eagles, according to my numbers, the Eagles are like the most volatile team in the NFL.
Yeah. Totally. I look at the Eagles.
Was that a shot at me, Lauren, when you said no one likes to bet the under? It's no fun. Was that
That's all he
shade at me? Yeah. I've been coming on the show each week betting under.
On that.
Okay, I thought so.
Like every single one of his best bets on the Pickswise site is an under.
It's always an under.
Him and Alex Glaze. Alex loves the unders too. Yeah. You guys love betting these unders.
Nothing I love more than a good punt, man.
The reason why the Sharps like betting unders and underdogs is because when the game starts, you are ahead and you have to lose.
Yeah.
That's the mindset but behind them. I get it. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Okay.
Continue with your Lions.
I digress. Continue. The Eagles scored twice 30-plus points this season through 7 games. In the other 5, they had no more than 22 points scored and have averaged 19.4 points. Meanwhile, the Lions scored more than 20 points. Guess how many times? They've scored more than 20. Yeah, just once.
Last week.
Yeah.
Week 1.
Last week they posted.
No, it was last week.
No, it wasn't last week. It was in their season opener against the 49ers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Didn't they get close last week? They got
they were 19 last week.
Yeah. They get close every single week. They literally find a way to lose in the 4th quarter with 2 minutes left every single freaking week. Okay. Well, we're not going to talk about that today because I'm getting my heart rate's going up a little bit.
Deep breaths.
But
do your breathing techniques.
The last 6 games, the Lions have just averaged under 16 points, 15.5 to be exact points per game. That would rank for the fourth worst in the NFL, if not for their week 1 outlier bringing up the average. Could the Eagles pop off this week, post more than 30 points, make the over cash here? It's possible, right? But it seems more likely that they'd score 20 to 24, the Lions posting 17. And I just think that comfortably keeps us under. Yeah. So unless you expect the Lions to absolutely pop off, go ham, finally break 20, it's going to be hard to go with the over here. So my Jabbar lay, again, to reiterate, I have the Bengals laying 10.5 against the Jets, and I have the Lions Eagles under 48. And I'm feeling really good about
What's the price? What's the odds here? What's the odds?
I didn't write it down. Oh my gosh. Let me look.
I would guess it's around 250-ish, maybe plus 230. Yeah, no, I like the bank.
I don't like that. I don't like that. You go, yeah.
No, I like. Let's just leave it at this. I don't like it as much as the one last week. So when I watched back the show last week, my favorite part of the show was when I said I was going to tell you, and your face lit up like a Christmas tree. It was hilariously awesome. So I'll agree with you on the under in the Lions Eagles game because the market has agreed with you there. The Bengals Jets game, obviously the market's agreed with you. The lines moved crazy in favor of the Bengals. But from what I'm hearing from the odds makers this week, again, this means nothing. This is just the odds makers' opinion. the line is getting a little stretched, where the Bengals being a 11-point road favorite, it's hard to, get behind that from a sharp perspective, because they just haven't done that on the road and they're not a proven team yet. But that doesn't mean that the Jets are going to show up this week. If the Jets don't show up this week, the Bengals could win by 40 without breaking a sweat. But from an odds analysis perspective, it's moved a lot, like that Packers-Cardinals game did. It's moved the full touchdown. Is Mike White worth a touchdown less than Zach Wilson? Tough to say that, considering they're both, not elite quarterbacks. Neither of them are. So
they're both not good.
No, they're both not good, but that means that you can't downgrade the Jets 7 full points for Mike White to, from Zach Wilson to Mike White. Is this your betting
analysis talking, Jared, or is this your heart talking a little bit?
Trying to talk himself into it. No, we're taking that Jets alt spread. We're taking that Jets minus 10.
Yeah, Jets minus 10.
All retiring.
I teased the Bengals down to under a touchdown. I got them early in the week, and I got it to 2.5. I would still tease it down to 4.5. And I just saw that Corey Davis probably isn't going to play this week. So this line might keep going to 11.5 over the weekend. So if you do want to bet the Bengals on the spread, I bet it now, because if Corey Davis doesn't play and you're down starting quarterback, number 1 wide receiver, it's going to keep moving in Cincy's direction.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens heading into this weekend, boys. I'm really looking forward to it. When this Jbara hits, I'll buy y'all a treat.
Oh,
maybe some candy corn.
Maybe some candy corn?
Yeah, maybe some candy corn.
I'm going to be buying you candy corn after
Andrew,
this weekend.
what is your opinion on candy corn now that we're talking about it?
I hate to not have a take, especially with this being a gambling show where I'm coming on to provide my takes, but I don't really have one. It's like I'll eat. I'm not one of the people who's like super polarized about candy. Everyone either loves it or hates it. I'm like, I'll eat it, but I don't like it. I don't hate it. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Lauren's
I know that's very lukewarm.
She's petrified, which is why this next little segment we're going to do.
Season. Let's get into our Pickswise 3-star play of the day. Jared, what do we got?
Nothing today. However, a bountiful array of picks to get to tomorrow. Connor Grutenhuis. Again, I need to get the official pronunciation for his last name.
Yeah.
So I don't
phonetic chart.
Yeah, there you go. Under 49.5, Indiana, Maryland. Our buddy Alex Glaze is on Michigan, and I just saw a big bet. MGM just tweeted this out. Someone just dropped 100 G's on Michigan -5 alt spread. So, there's some action on Michigan at Michigan State. Alex Glaze has that as 3-star play. And then we got some ACC action. Syracuse laying 6.5. That's Luke Lindholm's bet. And then Stephen Hall likes Minnesota laying 7.5 over Northwestern. So we've got 4 college football 3-star plays for you tomorrow. So exciting Saturday on the Pickswise site. Get after it.
I love it.
That's gutsy to bet 100K on an alt spread, selling 1 point to get -5 instead of -4. 100K.
He got plus 105.
Could you imagine if it lands 4 and it's like you lose $100,000 because you wanted to get the plus 105?
You're betting $100,000 on a game. I don't think you care about losing $100,000. Let's just.
That's true. That's fair.
You have $100,000 to bet. That's like.
Yeah. I would do I would like
in
have $100,000.
And to this guy, it's probably like $100.
He's like.
I would bet $100,000 if I had $100,000.
Yeah, it's like
it would be my last dime.
I would eat $100,000.
Yeah,
the candy.
It's either like that guy's like the $100,000's like pennies to that guy, or that guy's trying to buy himself a new house and just putting.
No, I think it's the former. The guys
I want to envision it.
The notable bets. It's always these sharp groups that have millions. Like it's not.
I want to envision it as like an uncut gem situation where it's like the guy betting every last dime and he's watching it, sweating out of his mind, and he's gonna jump off a building if it loses. That's what I want.
That movie was intense.
Oh my God, I love it. All right, before we end the show today, let's talk about our best bets of the day. And Jared, I want you to tell us how this candy corn topic relates. Please.
All right. So if you've been following the show the last week or so, if you follow LJ on socials, then you know that she's been putting out some candy corn hate. It sparked a very interesting conversation amongst us here on the show. It doesn't make sense to do a candy corn bet with Alex because he likes candy corn. So it's not a punishment for him to make him eat it.
He doesn't just like it. He's like passionate about it.
Yeah, he really likes it. So it's actually like a reward. So yeah. I said that when Lauren and I are on opposite sides of a game, we will insert candy corn into the swag challenge. You know, we've done the Michigan stuff before, where I had to wear a Michigan shirt that one day. Now we're going to do candy corn. So here's the terms of the bet. We're both on different opposite sides of the game. There's a chance that there's a middle here, which means we both have to eat candy corn, which would suck for both of us. But odds are one of us will win this, and the loser at some point next week will have to eat. I'll let Jack determine how much. a decent amount of
It
candy
can't be more
corn
than one.
live on the show. Live. Handful,
it's
Jack
actually like
says.
a sin
Handful.
just going out and buying candy corn at the store. Like it's
No,
like
don't worry. I know you won't want to do that, so I'll
have
have it sent directly to you.
You get that post-Halloween pricing. It'll be heavily discounted.
It's like after 4th of July, it's like buy one firework, get 10 free.
Yeah.
Candy corn, they do the same thing.
So here's the one catch, though. You're betting a money line, and I'm laying 3 points. So if the Falcons win by 1 or 2, we both lose, and we both have to eat candy corn next week.
I like it.
Deal?
Deal. Okay, then AO, shake on it. AO, you go first with your best bet, because then Jared and I are going to go back and forth for a little bit.
Okay, I'm witness to this bet officiating. Yes, like you said, I'm taking the Vikings. You hinted at it earlier. You could have gone on. You were like, "Oh, I don't want to take all your points." I could talk about the Vikings for hours on end. How long do you have? Like you could have given unlimited points.
Vikings.
Exactly. You could have given
50% right now. You only got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, that's fair. I was going to say, you could have gone on forever. I still would have had a whole laundry list of things to say about the Vikings. You know, during Sundays, this time of year during football season, they're special. They're all so great. Week 7 was cool. You know, the one thing that sucked about Week 7 was?
What?
It was the Vikings were on bye, so I couldn't bet the Vikings last week. But they're back.
So sad.
They're back and better than ever. Coming off the bye. Sunday Night Football. Kirk Cousins in prime time. What more could you want? Hosting the Cowboys. Everyone's high on this Cowboys team. I was high on the Cowboys too. I have some Cowboys futures, like the Cowboys just as much as the next guy. That being said, they're being a little overrated. Their defense in particular, I think, is being a little overrated. I mean, just a few weeks ago, they gave up 28 points to the Panthers. That's the same Panthers team that I know you guys are about to get into. But obviously, the Panthers offense hasn't been looking too hot recently. Sam Darnold put up 28 points on the Cowboys. A few weeks later, he's getting benched, and they're putting up 3 points on the Giants. So I think that reflects poorly on this Cowboys defense. Last week, the Cowboys, they got shredded by the last game. They got shredded by Mac Jones. They got lucky to win that game in overtime. Yeah. So I think this Cowboys team is not quite as good as people are acting just because they're 5-1. Everyone sees the record. The Vikings, on the other hand, I don't need to be a dead horse. I think the Vikings are much better than their record indicates. Their first week of the season loss was by 3 points on the road in overtime to the Bengals in a game that they lost on a controversial call because of a Dalvin Cook fumble in overtime. I mean, they lost by 1 point on the road against a 7-1 Cardinals team because they missed a 37-yard field goal at the buzzer. This Vikings team is much, much better than people realize. I think they're going to have a ton of success on offense, and I think that they will get enough stops on defense. If Dak plays, obviously that's the big question now surrounding this game. I took Vikings as a 2-point dog earlier in the week. I like them still as a 2.5 point favorite with the Dak injury looming. The way I see it is just kind of a cherry on top. I liked the Vikings before the Dak injury news came to light. Yeah. Now with the calf injury, if you bet the Vikings right now, call it whatever you want to call it, 10%, 5%, 15%. That Dak misses the game entirely, then that bet, I think you can just chalk that up as a winner if that 5, 10, 15% scenario happens. So that's just being added onto your bet. If Dak plays, he's clearly not going to be 100%. He's going to be less mobile. I think that's a recipe for disaster against a very talented Vikings defensive front, which has Daniel Hunter, one of the best pass rushers in the league. So at home in primetime, stadium's going to be rocking. If this were on the road, I'd be a little more nervous about Kirk, but I feel good about Kirk here. Home primetime Kirk is a whole different animal. So I love the Vikings. I'll bet them next week, a week after that.
I'm betting
too.
that same bet, so I'm all about it. Maybe I'll tell you on it. Oh, wait.
That warmed my heart. That warmed my heart that you bet the Vikings. I was like, oh, my God.
So Wednesday night, when I saw the line start to move a little bit in favor of Minnesota, and that coincided with Mike McCarthy put out, and listen, I don't know if Mike McCarthy has a good poker face or not, but he didn't show it much on Wednesday night when he said Dak. The quote was, he has to cross the threshold. And if he has to cross a threshold, that means he's not there yet. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is kind of coach speak for he's not 100%. And if he's not, Lauren, you've heard these coaches, they give you little nuggets sometimes when they don't have good poker faces. That stood out to me, and the market responded immediately and flipped this line. And I'll be honest, if Dak doesn't play, this probably moves to 4 or 5 very quickly. Maybe that might be too much for me. I would bet it now. I would bet it now.
Jump on it.
Absolutely.
Jump on it. All right. Panthers money line at Falcons.
Oh, boy.
Plus money bet. I get it. You don't really want to bet on Sam Darnold after the performance he's put up in recent weeks. I said after all, the Panthers were just blown out by the Giants, so why would they be able to beat the Falcons? Let me tell you why. Simply put, the Falcons are just as hard to trust as the Panthers right now. Atlanta, they have a 3-3 record, but 2 of their wins have been on field goals at the very end of regulation. And one was to break the 14-all tie with the Giants, and one was to emerge as the 2-point winner over the Dolphins. They're also allowing 362.7 yards per game this year, but that number is skewed a little bit by the London game, during which the Jets posted just 230 yards. And that's because the Jets are really bad. Sorry, Jared. Eliminate the outlier, and the teams are averaging 389.2 yards per game against the Falcons. That would be good for 8th most in the NFL. The Falcons have also been outgained in all but 2 of their 4 games. The one I just mentioned against the Jets, and then also against the Bucs. They had 7 more yards than their opponent. So what does all of this mean for the Panthers? You're like, okay, you gave a lot of info. What does all this mean? They should have a good chance to move the ball despite Darnold's recent struggles. I think that if Matt Rule comes in with the right plan, Darnold doesn't make too many mistakes early, then the Panthers should be able to move the ball down the field on this Falcons defense. I look at Carolina. They've lost 4 straight games, but 3 of those have been single score games. The Falcons, arguably the weakest team that they've played since week 4. So I think this is a good bounce back spot for the Panthers, especially if, quarterback Stephon Gilmore can make his debut and help replace JC Horn. I think the Panthers are I think the Panthers have been sorely missing him. I feel really good about Carolina in this game, money line against the Falcons. And I'm living in Atlanta right now, so sorry to all my Atlanta people.
I feel really good about you eating some candy corn next week. Do you like salad? Do you like candy corn salad or in a stew? Or
someone said to mix it with peanuts, so maybe I'll try to do that.
That's fine. There's no stipulation on what else you have to eat with the candy corn, but there just has to be, as Jack, our official referee, a handful of candy corn. The Falcons, in my opinion, are undervalued, and one of the bookmakers this week said that if it wasn't for so much pushback in the risk room, he would have made Atlanta 7.5-point favorites in this game. I was like, wow. Obviously, it's not as good of a bet at 3 than it is at 2.5, but I still would play it at 3. So Atlanta's offense is really sizzling right now. Arthur Smith, it took him a few weeks, 87 points over the last 3 games. They're finally getting Kyle Pitts involved. That is a really positive sign because weapons-wise, Atlanta's got some of the best receiving weapons in the entire league, especially if Ridley's 100% and you throw Pitts in there. Yeah. And I love Cordero Patterson's been fantastic. So they've got plenty of weapons. I agree that the Falcons defense is the weakness, but the Carolina offensive line arguably is the worst unit in the league. 21 sacks over the last 5 games. That's a lot. That's a lot of hits on Sam Darnold. And I think that's why the old Sam Darnold is starting to peek his head out and show you what, the issues were years ago with the Jets, because he's just not comfortable in the pocket. And yes, Atlanta doesn't have the defense to really make him uncomfortable, but if their offensive line doesn't play well, it doesn't matter how good the defense is on the other side. I think Atlanta's a great play at 3. If you take away that crazy game that they lost to Washington, they're on a 4-game winning streak right now. So the Falcons are hot, their offense is playing well, and the Panthers aren't, and you're only laying a short number at home. I think Atlanta's a great play. We'll see.
We'll see what happens, Jared. Come Sunday, come Monday.
Someone's eating some candy corn. Maybe both of us are eating candy corn. I'm sure
someone's eating some candy corn, and it's not going to be me. That's all I got to say about that. So that is it for us today. I'm going to end on that note. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. Jared Smith, Andrew Ortenberg. I'm Lauren Jbara. Best of luck tonight. Best of luck this weekend. We'll see y'all next week. Let's get it. Let's bet it.